welcome to this video. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create your very own savings tracker in Google Sheets. I'm going to start by giving you a small tour of what we're going to create, and then we're going to build the whole thing together from scratch, starting with a blank spreadsheet. And if you just want to download the template, you can find a link to that in the description down below. So let's get into it. This is what the finished template is going to look like. It's all contained in one tab, and I created 5 different sections. They all work exactly the same way, and you can use each one for a different savings goal. So I already filled out these 3, and I'm just going to show you how it works on this 4th one over here. So the very first thing you're going to do is add a title to your goal. So let's say you're saving for a nice bag. You can add that over here, and then you're going to set a deadline in this section right here. And to do that, you're going to double click on the date cell, and then you're going to pick any date that you like. And as you can see, as soon as I picked a date, the number of days left updated automatically over here. And finally, you're going to set a goal amount. So I'm just going to do a random number, 250 maybe. And as you can see, immediately after, this updated automatically to show my amount left to save. And right now, my amount saved is 0. And this number is going to start increasing as soon as I start adding transactions in this table down below. So whenever you're putting aside money for this particular goal, all you have to do is set the date, and again you double click on any of the date cells and this calendar is going to appear. So you can pick any date that you like, and then you can add your amount over here. So I'm just going to do $50, and as you can see, my amount saved increased, my amount left to save decreased, and then my progress bar moved. So those automations are going to happen every single time that you add a transaction. So as you can see, I have saved $110 and I am missing $140. So if I were to reach that goal by adding those $140, a couple of things are going to happen automatically. As you can see, my title got scratched, my bar reached 100%, and my number of days left disappeared. So even though there's still some days left till this deadline, since I already reached my goal, I don't want to show them. So we're going to create an automation that makes that number disappear. So that was a small tour of what we're going to create. If you would like to get the template, you can find the link to download it in the description down below. And if you want to learn how to create this from scratch, you can just keep watching. So I'm going to start on a blank tab over here. And before we get started, the most important thing that you need to remember throughout the tutorial is that if you're following along, make sure that you do everything in exactly the same cells that I'm doing it, just in case you have any issues. Your formulas will look exactly like mine, and you can easily figure out where things went wrong. So let's get started with the tutorial. And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create this section up here. So I'm going to jump back into my blank tab, and I'm going to select cell B2, and I'm going to type in the number 1. Those numbers are just there for reference. And then I'm going to merge together cells C2 and D2. So I'm going to select them both. As you can see, as soon as I select a range, you can see the range that I have selected over here. So this keeps changing as soon as I'm selecting either one cell or an entire range. So you can see what I have selected over here and compare it to what you have selected in case that's useful to you. So I'm going to select cell C2 and D2, and I'm going to merge them together using this merge cells button up here. And then I'm going to type in an example title for my goal. So I'm going to do trip to Japan, and I'm gonna stop using that example as soon as I actually do it. I keep using it everywhere. So this is where our title is going to be, and then as you can see right below the number we have our percentage, and right below the title we have our progress bar. So I'm just gonna leave room for that. So I'm going to select cell B3, and I'm just going to add a random percentage that I'm going to use as a placeholder, and later on we're going to replace that with a dynamic formula. But for now, I'm just gonna select cell B3, and I'm gonna type in 50%, and then as I mentioned, the progress bar is going to go down below the title. So I'm going to select cells C3 and D3, and I'm going to merge them together using this merge cells button. And then I'm going to add some borders to this section over here. So I'm going to select everything from cell B2 to cell D3. I'm going to click on borders, and then I'm going to pick a dark gray, maybe this third one from left to right. And then I'm going to select the option that says all borders. So hopefully you can see that better. And I'm going to do something that I do to every single one of my templates, I'm going to make sure that everything is aligned in the middle. So to select every single cell in this tab, I'm going to click on this square over here. And as soon as I do that, the entire tab is selected. So I'm going to select this option that says horizontal align, and I'm going to pick the one that says center. And then immediately next to it, I'm going to select this one that says vertical align, and I'm going to pick the one that says middle. So that's going to make sure that everything that I add is nicely placed in the middle. And then on this next section down below, we only need 2 columns, one for the date and one for the goal. So what we're going to do, since we have 3 columns available, is we're going to merge together columns B and C for the date, and then column D is only going to have the goal. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to select cells B5 and cell C5, and I'm going to merge them together. And then instead of doing the same thing for the cell down below, I can just copy this one and then click on cell B6 and paste. And now those two are also going to be merged together. So on cell B5, I'm going to type in the label date. And then on cell D5, I'm going to type in the label goal. And again, I'm going to select them and create some borders. So I'm just going to select everything from cell B5 to cell D6. I'm going to click on borders, and my gray is still selected, so I'm just going to click on all borders. Now, of course, we want this to be symmetric and look like they are the same size. So I'm just going to play around with the width of these columns to make sure that the date and the goal are similar in size visually. So I'm just going to make column B a bit smaller and then column D a bit wider. So you can go ahead and do that until it looks symmetric. And we could have totally done that at the end, but I don't think I could have handled looking at it for the next however minutes this is going to take. So now that it looks like this, I'm going to start adding in a couple of features just so you don't get bored with the layout. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create the progress bar. And even though I don't have a goal amount, I don't have any numbers, what I do have is my placeholder percentage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a progress bar that is connected to this percentage. And then later in the tutorial, we're going to make sure that this percentage is dynamic. So I'm just going to make row 3 a bit taller by clicking and dragging. So I'm going to select cell C3 and I'm going to type in equals and then the word spark line. That's the function that we're going to use to create our progress bar. And this particular one is quite, I'm not going to say complicated, but it has a lot of things going on. So I always turn on the formula help for this specific one. So all you have to do is click anywhere on the word sparkline and then click on this question mark, and then you're going to get this help feature over here. And if you click on the arrow, you can expand and see more details. So this is how this formula is going to be structured. First, you're going to have your data, you're going to have a comma, and then you're going to have a set of options, as you can see in the example down below. So in our case, our data is going to be a reference to the cell that is holding our percentage. In this case, that's cell B3. So I'm just going to type in B3, and then I'm going to do a comma and I'm going to add my set of options. So as you can see from the example down below, first you have to open curly braces and then you can start adding in your options. So my first option is going to be the type of chart that I want to create over here, which is going to be a bar. So I'm going to open quotations and I'm going to type in the word chart type with 2 T's, and then I'm going to close quotations. So my chart type is going to be a bar. So I'm going to do a comma, open quotations, and I'm going to type in the word bar and then close quotations. So that is my first option. And what I have to do to separate them is I have to add a semicolon. So I'm going to go ahead and add a semicolon, and then I'm going to type in the maximum value for this progress bar, which is going to be 100%. So as you can see down below, I'm going to open quotations and I'm going to type in the word max, close quotations, and then I'm going to add in my maximum value. So first I'm going to do a comma, and then the maximum value for my progress bar is going to be 100%, which means when my data reaches 100%, then the bar is going to be completely full. So those are the options that I'm going to add for now. I'm going to close those curly braces, and then I'm going to close parentheses. So make sure that your formula looks exactly like mine, and then I'm going to press enter. So as you can see, immediately after I got a progress bar over here that's halfway full. This orange color is there by default, but we're going to change it in a minute. And if I do 75% on this cell, then the progress bar will move. If I do 100%, the progress bar is filled completely. Now I'm just gonna bring this down to 75%. And to change the color, what we're going to do is we're going to add another option. So I'm going to select cell C3 and I'm going to jump back into the formula. You can either work on the formula bar or you can press enter on cell C3 and then you can see the formula down here. So what I'm going to do is right after my 100%, I'm going to add a semicolon, and then right after the semicolon, I'm going to open quotations, and the name of this option is going to be color 1 with a number 1. So I'm just going to type in the word color and then the number 1. Don't forget about that one. That's just the way the formula works. And then I'm going to close quotations. So what I'm looking for is to add a nice green color, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to do a comma. I'm going to open quotations and I'm going to add a hex value. So every color that exists has a hex value that represents it, and you can find different values online, but right now I already picked mine, so we can use the same one if you like, or you can find a different one online. So the way I'm going to add that is I'm going to do a hashtag, and then I'm going to type in this set of words, so you can just copy them. It's CADDA4, and then I'm going to close quotations. So this is the hex value that represents a nice green color, but you can also find different hex values online. This is just a random website, and as you can see, there's these colors and then there's the hex value that represents them. So you can find those online or you can just copy mine. So once your formula looks like this, I'm going to press enter, and this is what should happen. That orange that is there by default is now gone. So if I change this to 100%, it's still working. 50%, it's still working. So make sure that your progress bar is working, that your formula looks exactly like mine, and if for any reason you're sure that your formula looks like mine and it's still not working, what you can do is click on the sparkline word, then click on the formula help using this question mark. You can open it and then you can take a look at the structure that you're supposed to be using. If you're in a different country, your symbols might be different. So just make sure that you follow your own example over here and make the necessary changes if your formula structure is different than mine because your settings are for a different country. And if it's working properly, then we can move on. So remember, this right now it's a fixed value. It's a manual thing that I input, but later on the tutorial, we're going to turn this into a dynamic formula. So now that our progress bar is ready, I'm going to jump into the second section and I'm going to add these calendar features so that whenever I double click on this cell, a calendar appears and I can pick a date and that date is going to be shown in that same cell. So let's go ahead and create that. First, I'm going to make row 6 a bit taller, and then I'm going to select cell B6 and I'm going to click on data validation, and I'm going to select this option that says add rule, and from this criteria drop down, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to see all the options and I'm going to select the one that says is valid date, and then if the data is invalid, what I'm going to do is reject the input because the only thing that I want in that cell is a valid date. So make sure that your options look like this, and then I'm going to click on done and I'm going to close this. So if you did everything properly, you're going to double click on cell B6 and then this small calendar is going to appear. So you're going to go ahead and select any date that you like, and what you're going to see is a date that is formatted differently depending on the country that you're at. So what I like is to see words on my dates. I like to see the day of the week. I like to see the month as text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the formatting of this date. So I'm going to select cell B6 and I'm going to click on format number, and then all the way down you're going to find the option that says custom date and time. So you're going to see a bunch of options over here. The one that I'm going to pick, and you can keep scrolling down and you're going to see a lot of them. The one that I'm going to pick is this one that says the day of the week, the month, the day, and the year. So I'm going to select that, and you can select any one that you like. For example, this one, the weekday is shown as the full name, same for the month. So I could select this one and then make changes over here to the formatting. So if I click on any of these options, I can make additional changes. So instead of showing the full month, I can click on it and select month as an abbreviation, for example. So you can play around with these options and create your own formatting, or you can pick one that already exists. And once you're done, you can click on apply, and then that formatting should be applied to your date. So double click on your date cell, pick a date, and make sure that everything is working properly. And if it does, you can move on to this next section over here. So all you have to do here is add a goal amount. So you can go ahead and add the same one as I do, just to make sure that everything we do looks exactly the same. So I'm just going to do 12,000. And as you can see, by default, it just looks like a regular number, but I want this to look as a currency because we are tracking money. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select cell D6 and I'm going to click on this $sign over here. And if you're in a different country, you might be seeing a different symbol, but you can see as I hover over it, it says format as currency. So I'm just going to click on that and you're going to see that this changes to look like a currency. So once it looks like this, I'm going to create our third section down below. So as you can see, there's 3 rows. The first one is tracking the amount that we have saved so far. The second one is tracking the amount we have left to save. And then the third one is tracking our days left. And again, that's just 2 columns. The first one has the labels and then the second one has our automated formulas. So I'm going to jump back into the tutorial, and as you can see, I would have to merge this together again the same way I did up here to create my labels. But since I already have this one and it's already merged, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to click on cell B5, I'm going to copy, and then immediately after I'm going to click on cell B8 and I'm going to drag all the way down to cell B10. And once I have that range selected, I'm going to paste. So what happened here is I copied this one and I pasted it 3 times down below, and then all I have to do is delete these labels and then type in new ones. And I could have totally just merged them manually, and I could have also copied it once and then pasted it one at a time, but doing this was faster, so that's a quick shortcut. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in my labels. So the first one is going to be amount saved, the second one is going to be amount left to save, and then the third one is going to be days left. So on cell D8, we're going to have our amount saved. So this is later going to become a formula, but for now, I'm going to do something similar to what I did here, and I'm just going to add a manual placeholder. So I'm just going to manually add 1,000 as my amount saved. And since I also want this to be a currency, I'm just going to select this cell and I'm going to click again on this format as currency button. And then down below, I'm going to add a formula. And it's going to be a very simple one. I'm just looking to track my amount left to save. So I'm just going to do equals. I'm going to click on cell D6, which holds my goal amount. Then I'm going to do minus, and I'm going to click on cell D8, which holds my amount left to save. And then I'm going to press enter. So what you should be seeing here is 11,000, and it's already going to be formatted as a currency because both of these are currencies, but you can just make sure by selecting cell D9 and then clicking on format as currency again. So now whenever I change my amount saved, my amount left to save is also going to change. So I'm going to leave the days left formula till later, and I'm just going to select everything from cell B8 to cell D10. And I'm going to add some borders by clicking on this all borders option. So once I have my total amount saved, even if it's not dynamic yet, I have everything I need to create a dynamic percentage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete my 50%. I'm going to click on cell B3 and I'm going to delete my percentage. And then I'm going to do equals. And don't worry about this, it's going to get fixed in a minute. I'm going to do equals, and then I'm going to click on cell D8, and I'm going to divide that by cell D6. So that's how we're going to get our percentage. We're going to divide our progress by our goal amount, and then I'm going to press enter. So as you can see, I have saved 21%. If I do 1,200, then this should become 10%. If I do 12,000, this should become 100%. Now there's an issue with this, and it's the fact that if this is empty, if the goal amount is empty, this is going to show an error. So the way we're going to fix that is you're going to go ahead and delete your goal amount, and then you're going to click on cell B3, and right after the equal sign, you're going to type in the word if error. And then you're going to open parentheses. So if this calculation ends up being an error, what I want you to show instead of the result is 0. So I'm going to do a comma, 0, and then close parentheses. So that should make the error go away. And now if I bring back my 12,000, then my progress bar should work properly. If I click on cell D8 and I change that to 6,000, for example, I should get 50%. Now I have a couple cells that already have their final formulas, and I'm going to go ahead and change their background to a lighter gray, just to remind myself to never touch them again since those formulas are ready. So I'm going to select cell B3 and cell D3. And I'm going to change the background color using this fill color bucket over here to maybe this second gray from right to left. And I'm going to do the same thing for my amount left to save. That formula is already ready, so I'm going to click on cell D9 and I'm going to change the background as well. So this one is later going to become a formula and this one is later going to become a formula as well. So now I'm going to jump down below and I'm going to add my transactions table. So as you can see, I have 3 columns, one for a number, one for a date, and one for the amount. So I'm going to go ahead and click on cell B12 and add a hashtag. Then I'm going to click on cell C12 and add a date label. And then I'm going to click on cell D12 and add an amount label. So as you can see, I have some numbers over here and I do not want to add them manually. So I have numbers all the way down to 100. And the way I'm going to add them is I'm going to click on cell B13. I'm going to do equals and then I'm going to type in the word sequence. Then I'm going to open parentheses and I'm going to type in 100 and I'm going to close parentheses. So what this is going to give me is a sequence of 100 numbers all the way down below. Now on the second column, what I want is to double click on this cell and then get this calendar as well. So I'm just very quickly going to select everything from cell C13 all the way down to cell C112, which holds my last row, and you can absolutely use a larger number, but for the tutorial I'm just going to use 100. So once you have this range selected, you're going to click on data validation, and we've already done this before. You're going to click on add rule, and again on this criteria drop down you're going to select the option that says is valid date. You're going to reject the input if the date is not valid, and then you're going to click on done, and then you're going to close. So what this should do is once you double click on any of these cells, you should get the same small calendar, and you can scroll down to the very last one and test it out just to make sure that you applied that rule to the entire range properly. So once you have that, you can go ahead and select any date as an example, and you're going to see that it's formatted the same way this was formatted before we changed it. So again, I'm going to select everything from cell C13 all the way down to cell C112, which holds my dates, and I'm going to click on format, number, custom date and time, and I'm going to pick the date format that I want. So I'm just going to pick the same one, but you can totally pick a different one than what you picked up here. So you're going to select your format and then you're going to click on apply. So if it's not fitting, it's a good time to maybe change the size of your columns to make sure that everything fits properly while remaining symmetric. So over here, what we're going to add is an amount. So you can go ahead, pick any date that you like on cell C13, and then the amount that you supposedly saved on that day. So we're going to add 1,000. And again, you're going to see that this is not formatted as a currency. So I'm going to select everything from cell D13 all the way down to cell D112, and I'm going to click on this format as currency button just to make it look pretty. So once I have this, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this whole transactions table in a border. So I'm just going to click on cell B12 and I'm going to drag all the way down to cell D112. So that's holding my entire table, and I'm just going to add an outer border over here just so I can visually keep track of this table. Now, as I mentioned, right now this is a placeholder, and what we should have here is a formula that adds every single one of these amounts automatically. So it's very simple. All we're going to do is click on cell D8. We're going to delete the amount that we have, and then we're going to do equals. We're going to type in the word sum. We're going to open parentheses, and then immediately after, while this parenthesis is open, we're going to click on cell D13, and we're going to drag all the way down to cell D112. To the very end of our table. So as you can see, the range that I have selected over here is the range in which you're supposed to add your amounts, your transactions. So as soon as I selected that range, the reference to that range that I selected got filled out on my formula, and now all I have to do is close parentheses. So make sure that your formula looks exactly like this, and then you're going to press enter. And if it's all working properly, every single amount that you add in the amount column should be automatically added up here. And then as you can see, my amount left to save, it was already ready, so it's working properly. And to make sure that you have the proper range selected, you can click on cell D8 and then press enter. And what's going to happen is the range that is selected within that formula is getting highlighted. So you can see visually that it should be going all the way from the first amount till the very last row. So once it works properly, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the background color of cell D8 to my light gray, just to remind myself that that formula is ready. Now we only have one formula left before we can start making this look pretty, and that's our days left formula. So before we start creating that one, you're going to jump into cell B6, which holds your deadline, your date. You're going to double click and you're going to select a date that is 2 days from today. So whatever today is for you. For me, it's June 7th. So 2 days from now, that will be June 9. So make sure that what you're seeing here is 2 days ahead of your current date. And you're going to jump into cell D10 and we're going to do equals. Then we're going to click on cell B6 and we're going to do minus. And then we're going to type in the word today. We're going to open parentheses, we're going to close parentheses, and we're going to press enter. Since we set a date 2 days from today, you should also be seeing the number 2, even though your date is obviously going to be different from mine. Now, this is a simple formula. All we're doing is taking our deadline and then subtracting the current day to get the number of days left. But there's an issue with this, and it's the fact that if I don't have a date in here, if this cell is empty, I'm going to go ahead and delete cell B6. If it's empty, I'm going to get a big negative number as my number of days left. And what I actually want is to see maybe a dash or a 0 or nothing at all. So we're going to have to change this formula so that whenever there isn't a date in here, the formula won't execute. And we're going to use the if function for that. So I'm going to select cell D10, and then in the formula up here, right after the equal sign, I'm going to type in the word if, open parentheses, and then I'm going to add a comma. So the only thing that I have here is this is what I want to happen when there is a date in here. And what I'm going to add before the comma and after the parentheses is my condition. And my condition is going to check if there is anything on cell B6. So I'm going to click on cell B6, and then I'm going to use the greater than and less than symbols. And then I'm going to open quotations and close quotations. So what's happening here in this first section of my formula is I'm checking if cell B6 is not empty. So these greater than, less than symbols, and then these quotations, this is how I'm saying is not empty. So if cell B6 is not empty, then go ahead and do my formula. And then if it is empty, I'm going to do a comma, and then I'm going to open quotations. I'm going to do a dash, close quotations, and close parentheses. So if cell B6 is not empty, you're going to do this. And if it's empty, then you're going to do this. So if this is true, this happens. If this is false, this happens. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter. And as you can see, since I don't have a date in here, what I'm seeing in my days left is just this dash that I added over here in my formula. And then if I double click and I select any date, again, I'm going to select a date that's 2 days ahead of today. I'm going to see my number appears properly. Now, there is an additional situation that you can consider with this formula, and it's the fact that eventually you're going to reach your goal amount. So right now I'm missing 9,950. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a transaction for that amount. I'm going to press enter. And as you can see, I reached 100%. And once I reach 100%, there's really no point on showing the number of days left. So if this date was in the past, I'm going to go ahead and select any date that's in the past for me. You're going to get a negative number. And this negative number is going to keep on moving every single day. And since I already reached my goal, I don't care about this being executed. So we have to take that situation into consideration when we are creating this formula as well. So as I mentioned in this section, we are checking if cell B6 is not empty. And now I want to check for an additional condition. I want to make sure that my progress is less than 100%, which means I haven't reached my goal, which means I still want to see the number of days left until my deadline. So what I have to do is on cell D10, I need to replace this with a formula that is checking two different conditions. And then if both of these conditions are true, then you can go ahead and execute my formula and show my number of days left. So I'm going to show you how that formula that checks for two different conditions is going to look like. And I'm going to do that on a random cell first, just to show you how that specific part is going to look like, how it behaves. And then I'm just going to type it inside my actual formula on cell D10. So you can just watch the example and then follow along once I actually put it inside the final formula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select any random cell. That's going to be cell F6. And I'm going to do equals. And I'm going to use the AND function. I'm going to open parentheses. And first I'm going to check for the condition that I was already checking for. And that's if cell B6, so I'm going to select cell B6, is not empty. And my second condition is if cell B3, so I'm going to click on cell B3, is less than 100%. And then I'm going to close parentheses. So if I press enter, you're going to see that right now this is false because I have already reached 100%. If I delete one of my transactions and then my progress is below 100%, then both of these conditions are being met and my result is true. If I delete the date, then cell B6 is empty, which means both of my conditions are not being met. Only one of them is being met. And both of these conditions have to be met for the result of this formula to be true. If either one of these conditions is not met, then the result is going to be false. So this exact same text is what we're going to add inside our condition over here. And doing this is going to allow us to check for two conditions instead of just the one that we were checking for. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete everything that's after the first parentheses and before the first comma. You can go ahead and copy now. I'm going to delete that. And then right after the first parentheses, I'm going to add my AND function, open parentheses, and then I'm going to type in cell B6, which holds my date, my deadline, is not empty, greater than, less than symbols, and then quotations, quotations. Then I'm going to do a comma, and I'm going to type in my second condition. Cell B3, which holds my percentage, is less than 100%. And very important, I'm going to close parentheses to wrap these two conditions together. So whenever the result of this formula is true, this is going to happen. And if it's false, this is going to happen. So make sure your formula looks exactly like mine. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press enter. And I'm going to delete my example over here. So now we can test that this works. First, I'm going to delete my date and I should see a dash. So that's working properly. Then I'm going to bring the date back and I'm going to reach my goal by adding one final transaction. So I reached my goal and again I am seeing a dash. So make sure that's working properly for you, and if it is, you're gonna go ahead, select cell D10, and then we're gonna change the background color to this light gray. So now all of our formulas are ready, and in this next part what we're going to do is we're going to decorate it so it looks pretty like this. We're going to create a conditional formatting rule in which our title gets scratched whenever we reach our goal, and of course once we have one table completely ready, we're gonna copy it and we're gonna paste it so we can get 5 tables in total. So let's keep going. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a gray background color to this sequence of numbers just to remind the user that this is a formula and it should not be edited. As you may recall, this is where the formula exists on cell B13, and then you get a sequence of 100 numbers that gets created thanks to this formula. So to select this entire sequence of numbers, you can either just click and drag all the way down till you reach 100, or, and I'm going to show you a little trick, you can click on the number 1 and then you can scroll all the way down until you see the very last number. You're going to press shift on your keyboard, and without releasing, you're going to click on the number 100. And what's going to happen is you're going to select that entire range without having to click and drag. So once I have it selected, I'm just going to go ahead and change the background color to this second light gray. Now, as you can see, my final borders aren't actually as harsh as I have them right now. I just did it like this so you could see better. But now I'm just going to get rid of them, and then I'm going to bring them back in as I'm working on each section. As you can see, this one even has this nice dash style. So I'm going to get rid of them by selecting these 3 columns, column B, C, and D. I just clicked and dragged on the column letter, and then I'm going to click on borders, and I'm going to select this option that says clear borders. So I'm just going to get rid of all of them. And then as you can see, I created this using pretty much just 2 shades of blue. So I'm just going to go ahead and add these backgrounds. As you can see, the number 1, these 2 labels, and these 3 labels all have the same style, the same blue background and a white font. So what I'm going to do to add a style to all of them at the same time is first, I'm going to click on the number 1, cell B2, and then this is a cool trick that allows you to select multiple cells at the same time that are not consecutive. So if they're consecutive, all you have to do is click and drag and it's very easy. But if I want to select this and this and this this at the same time, what I'm going to do is first I'm going to click on cell B2, which holds the number 1. And then on my keyboard, I'm going to press the key Command, and I'm not going to release it. It's Command if you're on a Mac, and it should be Control if you're on a Windows. So while you have cell B2 selected, you're going to press on Command or Control if you're on a Windows, and you're not going to release. And then immediately after, you're going to click on cell B5, and you're going to drag all the way to cell D5 without releasing the key on your keyboard. So I'm just going to click on the date label and drag to the goal label, and then you can release everything just so you can take a look. And both of these should be selected. Make sure you're not doing anything else. And then immediately after, I'm going to press Command again on my keyboard or Control if you're on Windows. And I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to select these 3 without releasing Command. So I'm just going to press Command, and without releasing, I'm going to select these 3 labels. And once you have all of these 3 selected, I'm just going to click on my fill color, and I'm going to pick this light cyan one color that's right next to the green. So you can just hover over them, and it should be this 3rd one. So I'm just going to select that one, and then I'm going to change the font to white. And as I mentioned, I'm just going to start adding new prettier borders. So in this case, without releasing these, they are still selected. I'm going to click on my borders option, and I'm going to pick this 4th gray from left to right, and then I'm going to click on outer borders. So the borders are not going to be as noticeable right now. They will be once we get rid of these grid lines over here. As you can see, there are no grid lines in the background because we're going to get rid of them in the end. Now let's work on each of these sections and let's give them their final details. We're going to start up here. So first I'm going to select all 4 of these cells, everything from cell B2 to D3, and I'm going to click on borders. I still have selected my 4th gray from left to right, and in this section I'm going to use the option all borders. And then these 2, I want them to be bold, so I'm just going to select these 2 labels, and I'm going to click on bold, and I'm going to change the font size to 15, and I'm going to press enter. And then in this second section, it's barely noticeable, but we already gave these 2 a border, so now I'm going to select the date and the goal amount, cells B6 and D6, and I'm going to click on borders, and again I'm going to choose the option all borders. And in this one, I'm just going to change the size of the goal amount. I'm going to change it to font size 12, and I'm also going to bold it. Then for this section down below, I'm going to select my 3 labels, and I'm going to change the background color. So I'm going to click on fill color, and the one I'm going to pick is this one right next to the green, this light cyan 3. So that's going to be my background color. And without releasing, I'm also going to give this an outer border. And then I'm going to select these 3 values, cells D8, 9, and 10. And I'm also going to give those an outer border. Now, as you can see from the example, I also added this nice dash style over here. So the way I'm going to add it is I'm going to select those 3 cells again. I'm going to click on borders, and this time I'm going to change the border style by selecting this option right below the color, and then I'm going to select this dash one. And finally, I'm going to click on inner borders, and that should give me this nice effect over here. And for our final section, first I'm going to select the entire table. Again, you can click and drag from cell B12 all the way down to cell D112, or you can click on cell B12, scroll down, press Shift on your keyboard, and without releasing, you can click on cell D112, and doing that should accomplish the exact same thing. So now I'm just going to scroll up. I'm going to click on borders. I'm going to bring back my regular style. I'm going to select this option over here because we had the dashed option selected. So I'm just going to bring the regular one back, and then I'm going to click on outer borders. And finally, I'm just going to select these 2 columns, everything from cell C13 to cell D112, and I'm going to add some lighter inner borders. So I'm just going to change the color to this 2nd gray from right to left, and I'm going to click on inner borders. So that's going to make my borders look a bit lighter, and it's going to look a lot better once we get rid of these grid lines that are there by default. Now I'm also going to change the font, and to do that I'm going to select the entire tab by clicking on the square right above the number 1, and then I'm going to pick the font Lato, so that just looks a bit prettier, I think. And now I'm going to change the height of a couple rows just so some of them are taller and then these gaps in between are smaller. So I'm going to jump back, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the these 4 gaps all at the same time. And I'm going to make sure that they are the exact same size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on row 1 and I'm going to press Command on my keyboard. I'm on Mac, or you're going to press Control if you're on Windows. And then without releasing, I'm going to click on row 4. Without releasing, I'm going to click on row 7. And without releasing, I'm going to click on row 11. So now I have all of them selected at the same time, and I can change the height of one of them, and all of them will change and they will all be the exact same size. So you can just go ahead and find the height that you like. And then I'm going to make a couple rows taller. Row 2, 3, and 6. I'm going to have those be the same size. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to click on row 2. I'm going to press Command if you're on Mac, or Control if you're on Windows. And without releasing, I'm going to click on row 3 and I'm going to click on row 6. Immediately after, I'm just going to make one of them taller, and they all should change and they should become the exact same height. So we're done with our styling, and then our final step is going to be to add our scratching effect so that when we reach 100%, this gets scratched. So before we add that, make sure that you add a transaction that fills your bar up to 100%, just like mine. And now you're going to select cell C2 and you're going to click on Format, Conditional Formatting. So we're going to format this cell based on a condition. And first we're going to select from this drop down over here that says Format Cells If. We're going to pick the option that says Custom Formula Is. It's the very last one. And our condition is going to be if cell B3 is equal or greater than 100%, then you're going to apply our styling. So this is where we're going to add our formula right below the drop down, and you're going to jump into that text box and you're going to input equals, and then you're going to type in B3, which is the cell that's holding our percentage. So if cell B3 is greater than or equal to 100%, then you're going to apply our styling. So this is what's there by default, and as you can see, it's already working. Our background changed color. So now we're going to create our own styling. We're going to get rid of this fill color by selecting the option None. Then we're going to change the text color to this fourth gray from left to right. We're going to click on this strike through option to make our scratching effect, and then we're also going to click on italic, and then we're going to click on Done, and we're going to close this. So now if you get rid of one transaction and you're no longer at 100%, then it's not going to be scratched, and whenever you are at 100% or above, then it's going to get scratched. So that was our final little trick, and now that this is working, we can go ahead and we can copy this and create 4 more just like it. And it's really simple. It's literally just copy paste. But before we do that, let's just make sure that this space in between tables is small, just like this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click on column A. I'm going to press Command on my Mac, or Control if you're on Windows. And without releasing, you're going to click on column E. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to make this a bit smaller, just so it looks prettier and just so there's a gap in between your tables. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to copy this table by selecting everything from column B to column E. As you can see, I'm also bringing with me this gap just so that it's also going to be found at the very end of my second table. So I'm going to select these 4 columns. I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to click on column F, and I'm going to paste. And as you can see, now I have a table that looks exactly the same, but if I add in a new transaction, then it's completely independent from the other one. So I can just rename this to nice bag, for example, and then I can change my goal amount, and then I can change my date, and it's going to work properly. Now there's one thing I want to do here. I don't want to have to manually add a number every time I copy and paste a table right next to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on cell F2, and instead of having this number 1 just fixed there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a formula. So very quickly, I'm just going to delete what's there, this number 1, and I'm going to do equals, and immediately after I'm going to click on cell B2, and then I'm just going to do +1, and I'm going to press enter. So now that's changed automatically, and this is a table that I'm going to use to copy and paste as many new tables as I want right next to it, because this one has a formula, so it's going to adapt, and when I copy this one and I paste it over here, this number is going to become the number 3. But before I start copying and pasting, I'm going to delete all of my cells in which my user is supposed to input information. So first I'm going to click on the title and I'm going to delete it. I'm going to select both the date and the goal. and I'm gonna delete, and then I'm just gonna delete all of my transactions. So make sure you're only deleting user input and you're not getting rid of any formulas by accident. And once it's empty, I'm going to use this one to copy and paste. So I'm going to select everything from column F to column I. Don't forget about that gap. I'm going to copy, and then I'm just gonna paste 3 more at the same time. So to do that, I'm going to click and drag from column J all the way to column U. So I already counted them, and this is enough to add 3 tables, including the gap that's in between all of them, and then a nice gap at the end. So once I have this selected, I'm just gonna paste. And as you can see, this formula is adapting so that it's always referencing the previous number and then adding 1. So we have our 5 tables, and I'm actually gonna get rid of this blank space at the end. So I'm just gonna select everything from column V to column C. I'm gonna right click, and I'm gonna select the option delete columns. And finally, to make it look beautiful, I'm just gonna get rid of the grid lines. So I'm just gonna click on view, show, and I'm gonna select the option grid lines. And now it looks like this, which is really pretty. Now, before we end the video, I just wanna go through every single formula one more time very quickly, just as a little reminder. So the most important thing you need to remember is, as a user of this template, you're only supposed to edit cells that have a white background. So I'm gonna get rid of the title, I'm gonna get rid of these 2 values, and I'm gonna get rid of the transactions. And make sure that you never delete any formulas by accident. So I'm just gonna type in a new goal. Let's do vacation. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna double click on this date cell, and I'm gonna pick a date. And as you can see, immediately after, you get the number of days left. So this is the first formula. And what happens here is this formula will only be executed if there is actually a date in here and if we haven't reached 100%. If there is no date in here, or if we have reached 100%, we're going to see this dash over here. So after we set our date, we're going to set a goal amount. And our amount left to save formula is just going to show you the difference between what you have saved, which right now it's nothing, and your goal. So down here is where you're going to add your transactions. So you double click and you pick a date, and then you add an amount. And immediately after, a couple things are going to happen. Your amount saved is going to be shown up here, and all that's happening in this formula is we're adding up all of the amounts that you are entering in this column over here. So as soon as I add another amount, it's going to be shown in my amount saved, and my amount left to save is going to show the difference. And over here, we have our percentage. So all that's happening here is we are dividing your amount saved by your goal, and that's giving us our percentage. And this percentage is connected to our progress bar. So our progress bar is being filled according to this percentage, according to whatever is inside this cell, and then our maximum value is going to be 100%. And then let's not forget about our conditional formatting rule. Once we reach 100%, this text is going to get scratched automatically. And you can always take a look at your conditional formatting rules by selecting the cell in which you applied it and then clicking on Format, Conditional Formatting, and then you're going to see if you have more than one, you're going to see multiple over here. We just have this one for the tutorial, so if I click on it, this is the rule that we created that makes sure that this first table gets scratched whenever cell B3, which holds my percentage, reaches 100% or above. And what happened here is I'm just going to click on cancel, and I'm going to hover over my rule. And you're going to see that every single space that is supposed to hold the title of my goal is getting highlighted. That happens because when I copied and pasted my table, I brought with me this conditional formatting rule, and it is adapting so that every single one of these tables is looking at its own percentage. So as you can see, if I set a goal over here and then I reach it, and I'm just going to add a title, it's going to be scratched based on its own table. So this rule adapted when we copied it and pasted it, and it's going to keep on working on every single table that you copy and paste. So I'm just going to delete every single one of the cells that is supposed to have a user input, just so it's all blank and ready to be used. And again, make sure you're not deleting any important formulas, and you can keep going and you can keep adding columns to the right and keep adding tables, or you can right click on the tab name and select the option duplicate and then work on another set of 5 tables. So that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it useful. Please let me know in the comments if this was too easy, if it was too hard, and if you learned anything new. If you would like to watch some of my other free tutorials, I'm gonna leave the links to those in the description, and I'm also gonna leave the link to my shop in case you would like to purchase some of my more advanced templates. So this was a very long video. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye.